Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in, come in, come in. This is Tamika's Den. I am Tamika. And this is a review recap of Our Father, y'all. Okay, if you have not seen it, then I would suggest you go watch it. It's on Netflix now playing. Then come back and watch if you want to, because this is about to be a spoiler all around, up and through, baby. Okay, I'm about to spill the tea on all of this because it was crazy and I have to talk about it. If you don't care about spoilers and you still want to watch, you are more than welcome to it, okay? Now, as I said, this is a documentary on Netflix, okay? It's only about an hour and a half. It's not like one of the series where you watching each episode. And this is basically a story of a woman that did an at-home DNA test, okay, that revealed and led her to multiple siblings, all right? And she discovers a shocking scheme involving donor sperm and a popular fertility doctor, all right? That is the synopsis. And so let's go ahead and get into this, y'all, because like I said, I knew it was going to be some foolishness, okay? Some of these documentaries be a bit much, and every time you think it can go a step further, it does. So with this one, we literally start out this, beginning of this story with them letting you know that you're going to hear like audio and recorded conversations and things like that that come from interrogations and court hearings. Some of it is actually the actors and some are victims, but it's all based on real events. So in other words, some of these are the real life, children that are speaking, and some of these are actors that are acting out the different scenarios to give you the idea of everything that went down, but it's still based on actual events. And so we start out literally with the daggone doctor masturbating in his office, just to give you an idea of where we going with this, all right? And we see what is named sibling number one, right? Which I think was Jacobia, was the first one that actually did the test, right? She saw 23andMe. This is when 23andMe was very popular, just starting out. And she always kind of felt, and this is a common theme that you hear a lot of the children say, they always felt something was missing, right? They always felt like they didn't really identify with their parents, that some of them just really didn't look like anybody else in the family. And in her case, she would often go to her parents and ask, am I adopted? Like from a young age, I think she says about 9-10 years old, she was always asking. And finally, her parents told her when she was about 10 that she did in fact come from a donor sperm, right? That they had fertility issues. And so we get to meet her mom, and her mom talks about the fact that she got called when they said they found a match, okay? And, of course, this was donor sperm, and these were also supposed to be medical residents, right? That they used for these. And Dr. Klein was best known for infertility, okay? One of the best in the business, apparently a doctor in Indianapolis. And they would basically give you a notebook. It's not, of course, like how it is today, because this was the 70s and 80s. So whereas today you probably would have a computer that you could be looking at from 300 to 600 different, picks to choose from. Theirs was just a little notebook, okay, with however so many names, and you would pick the one out of that match for you, right? Some people may have wanted somebody that had similar traits or similar looks to the spouse that they were with if they could not have it with their spouse, okay? So that was one category. And the donor was never supposed to be used more than 3 times, and they purposely did that because they didn't want it to be a whole bunch of siblings that would be, within the same vicinity that could possibly end up interacting with each other and marrying each other and not knowing that they're siblings. So that's why they specifically always made sure that it was not more than 3. Okay, remember I said that as well. And so here it is, this lady is going back and forth, to get these different tests done, and trying to find this match. And they would talk to this nurse also that was one of the ones that goes and picks up the samples, and she was saying that she knew most of them because of the fact that they were residents, right? This was a regular routine. Also, you have to keep in mind that During these times, it had to be within an hour, right? After they got the sperm out, like it needed to be inseminated immediately. So you either had the husband coming with you to the clinic and doing it there, or doing it at home and getting it there within the hour, and then it getting inseminated into you. You cannot wait. Anything beyond that, the sample basically wouldn't be any good, right? And so it would be the nurse running to get it from the residence, or it would be the wife bringing in her husband's, or her husband bringing it in and having it inseminated in his wife, right? That was basically supposed to be the premises of it. And so when she does this DNA test with 23andMe, she's looking, expecting maybe to find one or two siblings, because of the fact that they say you can't do this more than 3 times. Well, baby, it was more than one or two that came back, okay? Miss Girl has 7 siblings that came up. And so one part of her was super excited, but the other part is like, wait a minute, if it's not supposed to be more than 3, then how am I getting 7 siblings, okay? And so, of course, you're going to get even more curious, right? Excuse me. So she then starts to call back and forth. They start interacting with the family tree, gathering more information. They find another cousin that's on the tree that basically, long story short, ends up being directly related to Dawn Klein. Okay, the doctor says that that's her cousin, or whatever the case may be. And at this point, sibling number 1 is like, okay, I'm filing a complaint with the, attorney's general office. At the end of the day, I at least want them to investigate this, because, isn't it supposed to be, number 1, that you can't do it more than 3 times? Number 2, this was not supposed to be who the donor was supposed to be. In one case, it was supposed to be, this donor that the parents chose. And in the other case, it was actually supposed to be the wife's husband. So obviously that ain't happened, because Klein is on all of them. So, now she wants them to go ahead and look into it. And so basically she gets no type of response. It gets to the point where she tries to reach out to Klein, but he's saying he don't want to be bothered. He's saying that he's not the father. He's denying this and saying that he's never used his sperm, okay? And they couldn't move forward without any type of DNA. Of course, they have their DNA that's confirming their siblings, but they don't have his DNA to confirm he's the dad, even though that's the only other common denominator in this, and so basically they start to message his children and grandchildren, because I guess they feel like if they could get any information that way, or if they can get any DNA that way, that would be the next, closest thing to not getting it directly from him. Okay. And at this point, they do have a son get back in touch with him, and his son and daughter actually do meet up with, Jacoby in person. And he tells her that, just dumb privately, he admitted that he was the father. We then get introduced to sibling number 14. And so you literally have, like, every time you turn around, is another sibling being added to these trees, right? And so her husband was actually the one that saw the news story and said to her, you look so much like that girl. And she was like, no, that's impossible. Okay. I'm not related to her, whatever. I don't know her, and there's no reason, because at the end of the day, my dad is my father, whatever. She said she knew that they had, some fertility issues, and that they did go to Dr. Klein, but her father was supposed to be her father, right? They were supposed to have used his sperm. And so she took the test anyway, and come to find out, he was right. Okay, this was her sister. And so now they wanted to meet him. They wanted to ask questions of him. They're getting more and more upset. They feel like their world is turned down. Can you imagine that you're thinking that this is your father, and then you find out that the damn doctor just basically inseminated your mother with sperm? Like, and he was just acting like this was no big deal. It was a normal thing, whatever. And so you have 5 of them that go to meet him, and they're trying to ask him questions, and it turns around to where he's almost interrogating them, or like if they're on a job interview where he's trying to analyze and see. He literally comes with a book and, pens, pencils, or whatever to take notes, and asking them, what they likes, what's their dislikes, what they do for a living, their age, as if he's trying to see if, maybe they got some whatever good traits from him or whatever, right? Like he's freaking made some bionic daggone kids or something. I don't know. It was just really weird from with the way that she was describing it, and it made her feel weird that he was doing it. And so he tells them at that time that there's no more than 15 siblings. So each time, first he said it was no more than 10, and then we got 14. Then he said it was no more than 15, and we get introduced to sibling number 17, who was a son, okay? And so he was like, basically he didn't believe it either. And he was another one that felt like it was things missing. Like I said, pretty much their stories are similar when it comes to that. And he says, he can't imagine that while his mom was waiting in the exam room, this man was basically ejaculating in a cup in the next daggone room, okay, to put into a syringe and then to put into her without even knowing that this is what he was deciding to do. And, the mom says she feels like she was raped 15 times and didn't know, because like I said, in a lot of cases, especially you having fertility issues, sometimes this doesn't happen on the first time. You're literally going back and forth and trying to get, hopefully lucky and get pregnant several different times, right? And so this man is a big time philanthropist. He's an elder in the church. He's over here giving sermons. Him and his wife is giving marriage counseling to people, this big pillar of the community supposedly, and this very well-known infertility doctor. And in the meantime, he's just sitting here putting in his sperm and whoever he felt like it, like, oh my God. And so, she contacted this news channel. I think it was Fox 59. They were the only ones that was willing to help, because she has sent it to all different kind of news outlets and nobody wanted to touch the story. Nobody was interested in the story. She sent it to the Attorney General. They didn't seem to care about the story or find it important. And so you had this one lady finally step up and start doing interviews, start calling him to ask him questions, start reaching out to the Attorney General as well. And he basically denied he was the father. He told him that he only used the sperm in training or something like that. And there was no way impossible that, there could be any more kids or siblings and brothers and sisters out there. And he didn't want to give DNA evidence, of course. He then calls the daughter and damn near basically practically threatens her. Now all of a sudden he's worried about the fact that he's been married 57 years, that this could mess up his life. He's telling her not to talk to the news outlets, not tell them nothing about it or whatever. It's one thing for them to talk about it amongst themselves, but he shouldn't be, putting this out there for the world to know. And at this point, she don't care about none of that. She's trying to find out the truth. She's trying to find out what made him do this, to begin with, and all those different type of questions. And she's just like, is this man freaking kidding me? He have the nerve to, want to tell me that he worried about 57 years of his marriage now. Like, you wasn't worried about it then, and you ain't worried about us and how it's, affecting any of us. So she just got even more pissed off and more insulted that he calls her to say that. And the fact that nobody wasn't helping her, she started doing her own research, as much information as she could possibly find. She just started, kept digging. And in the meantime, you kept having more and more people coming up, on her daggone tree as time is going on. And so the next thing she's doing this research or whatever, and then she never heard anything back from the Justice Department, like I said. And then you have sibling number 22 come up, right? Another daughter. And her husband had got her a DNA test for her birthday. And then it's like, you take this DNA test and you're seeing 20-something of the siblings. And it's like, no, that's impossible. I don't have no other siblings. What the heck are they talking about? This has to be some type of mistake, right? And then it jumps from sibling number 22 to sibling number 33. Now, in the meantime, of course, like I said, this man has said that he didn't have more than 15, right? And we way past 15 at this point, and they also were interviewing some of his colleagues. Like I said, it was the nurse that went to pick up the samples. It was other doctors that he worked with. It was another doctor that actually was one that worked with him close in the office, okay? for I think it was a matter maybe 15 years or something. And so even when you're hearing all of them talk about him, oh well, he was so good, and he was the best and he was the nicest, and this just wasn't something you expected to hear about him, and it would be something that would be hard to believe about him, but they would all have one thing in common that they would say about him. He always thought he knew it all. If you knew something, he knew more than you. One doctor that actually said she had a PhD and majored in neurology with children and different stuff like that and preemies, said anytime she was trying to make a diagnosis or talk about something with a case, he would pretty much, dumb her down. So you could tell he didn't have respect for his colleagues. He definitely didn't have respect for women and things of that nature, right? And her husband was both talking about him. They even mentioned how he had arthritis and some other type of autoimmune deficiencies, and how they would send him to doctors they knew, right, and give him referrals and be like, oh, well, we don't want him to be messed up and not being able to do the care he needs to do for patients or whatever the case may be. And that these doctors would, give him certain different treatments to do to help him. Okay, so remember that couple that I'm saying knew him. That was the doctors, honey. And so, like I said, we get to sibling number 33, and she was given a DNA test to take for Christmas, okay? And one sibling actually already knew another sibling, right? And this shouldn't be too hard to believe, because remember, he's using people, some that live 5 minutes away from him, okay? And these other ones are in about a 25-mile radius, so that's really not far. So you have some that's finding out like, oh shoot, the girl from the cleaners, is our sister. The one from the laundromat is our sister. The one that goes to this church is our brother. One sibling had another sibling that their kids had already been playing together, on a basketball team. And one of the other kids' parents, father was the daggone coach on the team, right? And so both times, her father had provided the sample, so he was the father of all these people. So now it's getting to the point where you're like, okay, I got siblings in the same town. We got kids that go to school together, whatever. Now you're getting to that point where you're saying, I hope that, is no one that I know, right? And I definitely hope it's no one that I've dated. Now, just imagine, I know just even in my family, we all usually be like, you want your kids to know if they have other siblings out there, right? You even want them to know their cousins, because we got such a big family. I wouldn't want them to move somewhere and that's their cousin. But imagine it on this level where you don't know that this sperm is being used, and you and God knows how many other people, when it was never even asked for that sperm to be used in the first place, okay? And he just took it upon himself to decide to do it. And then you're finding out you have all these different siblings. And so, we then get to sibling 48. You notice the numbers just still steadily climbing, okay? For somebody that said, oh, it's not more than 5. It's not more than 10. It's not more than 15, honey. It's more than all of that, okay? We are going all the way up. And so this person got an ancestry test, and somebody at his job or something was like, oh, with those, you might have 15, 20 people that come up all together. That's even, your family, period. No, he got 3,000 hits of people that was related to him. And then, he's finding out that it's 40 something of those that's actually supposed to be his siblings, right? And at the same time, you got Angela from Fox 59 still trying to call the attorney general, and they're still saying there's nothing that they legally can do, okay? Legally, this is not a crime, okay? So even though what he did might seem unethical and it might seem bad and you might not agree with it, legally, there's nothing in the law that they can use against him for him taking his sperm and putting it into all these different women, and their lives being totally ripped apart, because now they got to tell their partners, this is not your child. Dr. Klein used his sperm. You know what I mean? Or they got to go and tell their mamas or whoever, well, the donor that you chose was not actually the donor that was used. There's times where a lot of these men, like I said, sent their sperm in. So it's like, well, what did he ever do with their sperm? Did he throw it in the garbage? Did he use it in some other people? We don't know. Okay, honey? And so that just was really blowing my mind. The fact that there's no law against this, and it's just okay that he did this, and there's no type of repercussions behind it. just really was amazing to me, you know. And so you do have some of the siblings that are getting together, they're talking, you know, they even at one point find that it's some type of cult. I forget what the name of the quote was. I think it was Quiverville. When they looked that up, it was these people that had these beliefs, because he was saying his favorite quote in the Bible was Jeremiah 1:5, I believe it was, which was something like, before you went in your mother's womb, or before I put you in your mother's womb, I knew you, right? And this was a quote that he always wanted to say to all of them. And this is a quote that they use too. And basically was supposed to be the point of it. And of course is, you know, Christianity or whatever have you, is that they felt like the white race was starting to become extinct and wasn't as much as them. They needed as much pure white as they could, so they would try to have the maximum amount of kids that they could have. And it was to the point where they was like, okay, we don't know whether he was a part of this or not, but it seems like that's what he was doing. And it seemed like a lot of the beliefs that he have aligns with these beliefs, and they having the same saying that he has. So they was like, well, we don't have no choice but to speculate and have conspiracy theories, because we've never really got any real answers from him as to why he did this. He always made it seem like, you know, oh, I didn't do it like that, or I didn't do it that often. I only did it for the people that really needed it, when there's no other, you know, stuff around that I was able to use or whatever. When we know that that was basically all a lie, you know. It even got to the point as well, because she was talking to the reporter and stuff like that. Not only did he threaten the reporter, you know, and tell her, I know where you live, and, you know, want to walk and carry a gun to meet her and all of this stuff, but he actually was having the kids threatened as well too. There was times when their voicemails would disappear, or the information they had on their computers would disappear. They was getting calls from people saying, you know, do you want to know where your plot is going to be, where you're going to be buried at? One girl came out and all the nuts from all four of her tires was removed. So they was like really threatening these people's lives, like, y'all better shut the heck up or else, you know. And so then they finally did have the attorney general start an investigation, only because he threatened to sue the first daughter, Jacoba, I think her name was, right, and say that he was going to sue her for libel and slander, and the fact that they caught him in a lie, lying to the attorney general on their forms, and also lying to the reporter. And so even when they brung up the charges, it had nothing to do with the actual insemination. Okay, they was able to get a warrant for his DNA, which came back that he was 99.9% the father. Okay. And then when it finally went to court, he was basically charged with 2 counts of obstruction of justice. And he changed his plea to guilty, because he pretty much knew, like, that's all, folks, I'm caught at this point, right? But he still was not even brought up on that. Like, that just amazes me. And the sentence that he got was basically just for a level 6 felony to be on his, you know, criminal record for the rest of his life. And a $500 fine, y'all. Okay, so there was no jail time. He just got to have felony on his record for the rest of his life, which at this point he an old ass man anyway, and a $500 fine. That's all he got for him sitting here inseminating into God knows how many women, going in the office next to them, jerking off, and putting his stuff in a cup and then putting it in the woman without her knowledge. Got him a $500 fine, y'all. That tell you everything you need to freaking know. Okay? And so they still had more matches coming up. At this point, I think we was like number 53, you know, and a lot of them also had health issues. So this is another reason why you do choose the donors that you want, right? Because you want healthy donors, right? With certain type of genetics and traits and things of that nature, even though stuff probably could still happen. But the biggest thing about it was that he would have been exempt from it because of the health issues that he had. All right. So he basically excluded himself off of that and put his stuff in God knows how many people. And now the kids literally have a lot of these same diseases in common with each other as well, where they struggle with all different type of illnesses. All right, y'all. And so then you had number 61. Okay, sibling number 61. She does a 23andMe test as well. You know, She doesn't think anything of it. The girl Jacoby reaches out like she always does. She's one of the main ones. I think it was her and Jamie that would always reach out and say, hey, you might be confused. You're one of our siblings, and if you want any information, we'll fill you in. So she's like saying, I don't know what they're talking about, you know. So then she's looking at Dr. Phil and basically sees a whole bunch of them up there on the Dr. Phil show. And realizes like, oh shoot, this is what they meant, and this is my siblings, and I look like them and they look like me, and my mom went to the same place, and now it's all starting to come together. Well, honey child, just when you thought the story couldn't be no crazier, remember I said to remember the two that was the couple that both were doctors and both knew him as a friend and as a colleague, and he coming over to their house and all this and that. Baby, come to find out he was they daggone doctor too, okay? He was a fertility doctor for them as well. They were the parents of number 61. She basically was a twin. Excuse me. And there's a picture where he came and visited their house like when they was a couple months old. And he's literally holding her in the picture, okay? And just when you think that's bad and you think that's worse, no, baby, it gets even worse than that. The girl, okay, that was number 61 that had the twin that he held as a baby, that he knew these daggone parents, and these parents done referred him to other doctors about his sickness and all this and that, actually was her fertility doctor as well. The daughter, y'all, number 61, was her fertility doctor, was her GYN doctor, was giving her GYN exams, was giving her breast exams, and all this different stuff. So she says she felt so gross out, okay, and so sick to her stomach, which I can't even imagine, because she was like, you know, you have a hard enough time, and sometimes you already not that comfortable with a man, you know, doing your GYN exams or whatever. And had she known that this is somebody that was related to her, that's her daggone father, basically, she definitely would have been against it. So he had even freaking violated her in that way, as if all the other ways wasn't damn bad enough. And by the end of this, we just see that it's not a federal law. It still hasn't been made into a federal law. And with everything we see going on with reproductive rights and everything else, I just think this is bonkers, okay? And we see that 44 additional doctors have now been caught out there with this same thing, okay, that they were doing this too, basically the same thing that Donald Klein has been doing. And I'm sure it's more than that. That's the only ones we know about. And the last number, okay, of kids as of the end of the production, meaning the taping of this documentary for Netflix, was 94, y'all. So we are at 94 kids and counting. From somebody that said, oh, it's not more than 10. Oh, it's not more than 15. We are at almost 100. Child, I don't know, but that was some sick stuff, honey. And I really hope that we start getting some more laws put in that's protecting certain things, because there's no way in this freaking world that this man was supposed to be able to just go and put his sperm all around in every daggone woman without them knowing, without getting their permission or consent for it to be done to them. And then it's just like, oh, well, you know, I'm a good man now. I'm living a great life and I'm believing in Christ, and, you know, don't mess up my marriage of 57 years, even though I done put out 100 kids all around that did not freaking know anything about, you know, me being involved with it. That is freaking crazy, y'all. Absolutely crazy. But that was Our Father. You go ahead and put it in the comments. Let me know what you feeling. Let me know what you thinking. Let's discuss. Let's discuss. Let's discuss. All right. Like, share, comment, subscribe.